Rachel. This is Rachel Makes. Today I'm going to make a vegetable pie. This is a fantastic recipe and it's one that I make quite often. It's a really cheap and cheerful version. There's no cream in it or anything like that, and you use whatever vegetables you have really. Okay, so I'll show you what we need. For the pastry, because we're going to make our own pastry because it's by far the cheapest option, though of course you could buy pastry if you wanted to, we're going to use 250 grams of plain flour and 125 grams of cold butter, cubed, and some very cold water. That's all you need to make your own short crust pastry. Okay. For the filling for our pie, we're going to use, I'd say, a cupful of frozen spinach, which I've defrosted, a cupful of sweet corn from the freezer, a cupful of frozen peas, a couple of onions, or one big onion, these are quite small, a handful of green beans, and a couple of sticks of celery. Okay, and to go in our sauce to make our filling for our pie, we're going to need some butter. There's 50 grams of butter there, a couple of tablespoons of plain flour, some salt, some pepper, a vegetable stock cube, and a little bit of dried tarragon, and that's it. Okay, so what we're going to do first of all is make our pastry. So what you need to do is rub the butter into the flour. Now I've used all butter for this pastry here. What you could use is half butter and half lard, or if you wanted to use something like Trex, then that's absolutely fine too. You just choose what you want to use. I like the flavour of all butter. So we're going to rub the butter into the flour until we have what resembles fine breadcrumbs. Okay, so now we have what looks like fine breadcrumbs. Okay, so we're going to start adding a little bit of cold water. Now you notice I've just said some cold water because it's difficult to be precise about amounts. You just gradually add a tiny amount at a time, because what we don't want is a really wet pastry. So you have to mix it with a knife rather than a spoon until it starts to come together, and just gradually add little bits of water until it starts to look like pastry and you can start to kind of gather it together with your hands. Okay, so you can see this has come together really nicely now. So what we're going to do is wrap this in cling film and pop it in the fridge whilst we make our pie filling. Okay, so what we're going to do now is chop up the vegetables that need chopping up. Obviously the spinach and the peas and the sweet corn don't need to be chopped, but we need to chop up the onion and the celery. And what I forgot to mention earlier is that for our sauce, when we get to the part of the recipe where we make the sauce, we will need about half a pint of milk. Now I've used skimmed milk. You can use whole milk, you can use semi-skimmed milk, whatever it is you like. Okay, so we've melted 50 grams of butter in the pan, and we're going to put the onion and the celery into it to cook gently. Now 50 grams of butter seems like a lot, doesn't it? But actually this is going to be the basis of our sauce. And this is all the filling is made in one pot, which is actually really handy. So we're going to gently cook the onion and the celery until it's soft. Okay, so the celery and the onion has had a while to cook now, about sort of 15 minutes I would say, on a nice gentle heat, and they're looking translucent. So now we're going to add a couple of tablespoons of plain flour, a couple of heaped tablespoons of plain flour to this mixture. Okay, we're going to mix it up. Now at this point it looks really revolting and you'll think, oh my goodness, this is never going to make a nice sauce, but believe it or not, it is. Okay, so now this looks like the flour is coating all of those vegetables. And so the butter and the flour is actually what's going to make our sauce. Okay, so what we're going to do with the heat still on is gradually add the milk, a tiny bit at a time, and let it be absorbed into all of this mixture. And you can see that it very quickly disappears, and just keep adding tiny bits of milk until you've used all of your milk up. Okay, so what we had was a lovely smooth sauce, and to that I've added all of the rest of the vegetables and I've just mixed it together, and I've added in salt, pepper, stock cube as well, and also the dried tarragon. You can put whatever you like into it. I mean, you might not want to use a stock cube, or you might particularly like parsley, for instance, or you might have some fresh herbs. Absolutely up to you. So what we're going to do is cook this together for a couple of minutes to take away that taste of flour from the sauce. And then once that's cooked, we're going to pop it into a pie dish. Okay, so I've taken the pastry out of the fridge. Because it's had time to rest, it'll be a little bit easier to handle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll the pastry out and pop some on the top of the pie dish. Okay, so I've popped the pastry over the top and I'm going to just cut off the excess pastry here. You could always use the excess to make some jam tarts or something like that if you wanted to. Okay, so I've rolled the pastry out and I've popped it over the top of the pie, and I've also made a couple of little hearts for the top as well. Obviously you don't have to do that. And I'm just brushing it with a little bit of beaten egg and water. Again, you don't have to do that, but it does give the pie a nice finish in the end. Now what we're going to do is cook this on 180 degrees for about 30 minutes. Okay, so this is cooked now. It's out of the oven. You can tell it's cooked because it has a light golden brown colour over the top. Okay, so that's it. This was Rachael Makes. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find it helpful. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe. I'd like to see your comments. Nice ones, please. Bye-bye.